Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank the ranking member. Thank the witnesses for appearing. My questions have to do with the surveillance. And my first question is, are all people who are traversing areas within an airport under some degree of suspicion? Who would like to answer, please? Should I assume that persons who enter the airport and who are not within the secured area will not be subject of this technology?
Not by TSA, sir. It solely occurs at either the bag drop or the checkpoint.
Or a time and place where you have to present an identification to establish your identity to go through whatever process that is.
In Houston, the bag drop occurs outside of the building. Before you enter the building, you drive up in your car. You have friends, neighbors with you perhaps, and you go over to an agent, and that person then receives your bag, gives you a ticket. So would it occur in this area, please?
I went down there, I observed the way the technology...
If I may, because time is of the essence, but we're talking about expanding, are we not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Here's my concern. Let me go to the point, and I'll be as pithy as I can, but one can only imagine what Mr. J. Edgar Hoover would have done with this technology. It was Mr. Hoover who surveilled Dr. King. They went so far as to send a letter to Dr. King encouraging him to take his life. One can only imagine. Now, I'm not placing you under the eye of suspicion, but it's my job to make sure that this kind of technology is not abused. And I take my job seriously because I'm protecting you by doing my job. So my concerns are, do you alert people in some way so as to advise them that they're being surveilled?
Or something along those lines.
Permit me to ask this. If you believed that this was a form of surveillance, would you alert people? Would you alert the public if you thought this was some form of surveillance?
Sir, we don't do surveillance.
You don't
We're
do
alerting
it,
the public
but if
through
you
signage.
thought, would you recommend, if we were of the opinion that this is surveillance, what do you think we should do? Should we indicate that person should be noticed that they're being surveilled?
So we provide notice before the image is captured. It's purely with the consent
What
of the
about
traveler.
the consent of the person who happens to be with the traveler, who is just a friend?
We solely capture the picture of the traveler who's consented.
I
The
see.
camera is only about 2 feet away. You step right in front of it, and it solely captures that image.
All right, thank you. But we are considering expansion. My concern is suspicion-less surveillance. Suspicion-less surveillance. Surveilling persons who are not under suspicion, perhaps by accident. Final question is this, because time is running out. Will there be any means by which persons who engaged in litigation can acquire access to this intelligence that you have preserved for some length of time, meaning the photographs? Will there be any means by which persons who are engaged in litigation can acquire it?
Sir, the photographs we match against are in the CBP TVS system. They're passport photographs. The images that are captured are not retained in the camera in any respect. We solely get back a match, no match return, if that answers your question.
It really does not, because what I'm trying to get to is this. If persons are engaged in some form of litigation, and one can only imagine what that might be, will they be able to acquire a photo so as to show that a person was at a given location on a given occasion?
I understand, sir. That photo is not retained at all by TSA. So they will not be able to retain it.
It is retained.
It's encrypted, it's transmitted to CBP, and a match rate is returned.
Okay.
If it's a U.S. citizen, the photo's deleted after 12 hours. If it's a foreign national, at the baggage drop, that photo would also be deleted. What we would keep on a foreign national, though, is their boarding of the plane and their final departure to serve as the biometric exit of their departure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate this, and I assure you that I want us to secure our airports, our ports of entry, but I'm also concerned about suspicionless surveillance. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman, Mr. Guest, you're recognized for 5
The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, who is also the chair for the Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigation, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for appearing today, Mr. Powell. Mr. Powell, this is an observation, not a criticism. You've indicated that the fundamentals are strong. However, you also indicated at the last FMOC press conference that you were a bit surprised that wages have failed to move up despite being well into an expanding economy. Sustained levels of historically low unemployment and increased labor force participation. Fundamentals are strong. Strong, yet nearly half, 42.4%, of working Americans in 2019 made less than $15 an hour. Fundamentals are strong. A good many of the people in my congressional district, Mr. Powell, are more concerned about the supermarket prices than the stock market. When they go to the supermarket, they're concerned about the price of Procter & Gamble products, not the stock market price of Procter & Gamble itself. The stock market means nothing to them. It's what they have to pay for products in the supermarket. This brings me to my question. Has there been a study to give us some sense of what a $15 an hour wage will do for the economy? A study for what a $15 an hour wage will do for the economy. Has the Fed done such a study?
The Fed has not. That's not something we would do. But
Well, let me just address that if I may. Don't mean to be rude, crude, and unrefined, but let me just call to your attention a study that I found quite interesting. The Carbon Disclosure Project. Good project. Based on thousands of disclosures, you've concluded that the 500 largest companies by market capitalization are exposed to $1 trillion in risk. Now, someone could argue that that's probably not something that you ought to do, although I understand that climate change is something that is important to the Fed because it will have an impact, global impact. But I think you can take a closer look at this. You're the ultimate authority on price stability, on wages. Let's have a study to determine what impact a $15 an hour minimum wage will have on the economy. A wage disclosure project, if you will. Give me some thoughts, Mr. Powell. Can you help us, please?
there's a great deal of research that's been done on minimum wages, and I don't know of a particular one, but there has to be somewhere research on what a federal $15 wage increase.
And I agree with you. I agree. I've read a few. But they don't come from the Fed. They don't come from the entity that has the dual mandate, price stability, unemployment or employment. It would mean something to working people if we could get such a study, notwithstanding what others have done. And these are observations, Mr. Powell, not criticisms. I've enjoyed visiting with you. Notwithstanding what others have done, this would be meaningful to working people. By the way, I think $15 an hour is not enough as a minimum wage. I think it ought to be at least 20 now, but I'll still settle for 15 if we can get that. So can we work with you, discuss with you the possibility of a wage project?
You know, or again, I'll go back and talk to our labor people who know this issue very, very well, and many of them have published on these issues. So let me come back and.
I'm going to thank you for it. I've got 46 seconds, and I'm going to applaud you for it. Personal applause. Madam Chair, with that, I will yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you very much. Is the gentleman requesting to have an answer in writing for the record on this question to the chairman?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you.
The witness is requested to provide an answer in writing for the record. Thank you. The gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Barr, is recognized for 5 minutes.